Hey everyone, this is Coloring Chemist. My name is Connie, and welcome back to my channel. This is a long promised video, and my apologies for it taking so long to get filmed and put out. Other things just kept getting in the way, and well, I'll explain why in a minute here, why it took so long. But this is a video where I'm going to compare all of these. They're not all fixatives, and I'm not using them as fixatives. Basically, these are different products that I have that I'm going to use to pre-prepare some pages in this coloring book. And then we're going to test a variety of markers on those pages to see which of these products gives us the best sort of base for. Really what I'm getting at here is blending markers on the page. For those of you that have watched my channel for a while, you know that's a fairly, well, it's quite often almost the exclusive way that I color. And the markers that I tend to use the most, or the pens, are either Pitt pens or the Staedtler pigment brush pens. And I know there's various ways to use these. You know, you can put them on a palette, you can pick them up with a water brush, etc. I just really like blending on the page with these marker pens. And when it comes to that, paper is everything. If you have typical Amazon print Create Space coloring book paper, which we've got Gabby Wolf's Mini Mania 6 here, most countries' paper is not going to work at all for blending these on the page. Not to say you couldn't use these to color in these books, but you're not going to be able to blend on the page. And when I say blend on the page, hold on one second, I'll get an example. Okay, so this is a recent color along that I did in the channel. This is in Fairy Tales and Folklore, Emily Lederhol Oberg. And this paper in this book is phenomenal for blending markers, particularly the pigment-based ones that I use. Although I would imagine, I haven't done a lot of practice with it in here, but blending other water-based markers, you know, like your Tombows, that sort of thing, would probably work really well on this paper too. But the pigment pens in particular, you know, we can see we've got blends within the flowers, you know, going from darker to lighter in the bird, you know, all over the place, the leaves. That was blending on the page with those pigment marker pens. And so, because paper matters so much for these pens, sorry, I just had to put the book aside, it can be tough because there are tons of books that, you know, I would like to color in, or that you might like to color in with your Pitt pens or with your Staedtler pigment pens. But if the paper doesn't cooperate with blending on the page, it gets really frustrating. Now, I've talked previously about using this. So this is Krylon Workable Fixatif. I'm not using it as a fixative though. I'm leaning heavily on the workable part. And so what this does is it basically puts a coating on the page. It's probably got a resin of some kind in there. You know, I've not, it doesn't say on the can, of course. Have I looked up the MSDS for this? I might have. I can't remember. But it's probably a plasticizer resin, that sort of thing. So this is going to put a coating on the page, which is why it's a type of fixative, right? Because then that would fix, you know, whatever you've used down to the page. I spray it on uncolored pages, blank pages. And then that coating that this puts down allows me to use these kinds of pens on paper that wouldn't typically play well with these kinds of pens. And I've done a video on this before. I can try and remember to link it in the description box below. Now, a lot of people don't like using this, and I understand that. For those of you that don't know, I'm a chemistry teacher, so I have a healthy respect for chemicals. I use that word. Everything is a chemical. But I have a healthy respect for, let's just say, chemical products with these kinds of warnings on them, right? You've got extreme danger, very flammable, it's poison, it is an irritant. And so when I use this product, I use it typically outside in a very well ventilated area. If I'm going to be spraying a lot of pages, I will actually put on an N99 mask to spray. Not if I'm just doing one or two, but so I get it. I understand that, folks might be a little hesitant with using this product. So I have a couple of other products here. And I thought, well, why don't we do sort of a compare video here to see, what kind of results do we get using these other products? And one of the lovely viewers that, when I mentioned this previously, had asked if I could do this on basically an Amazon print book from the US. Now, I've also done a video on this before where I've compared Amazon print books from 5 different countries in terms of comparing the paper. And what we basically came to I came to the conclusion, and I feel terribly, for you guys in the US, your Amazon paper really is the worst. It's very thin. It just does not play well with marker blending on the page at all. And I had recently bought this book, I'm thinking a couple months ago. And weirdly, I ordered it from Amazon Canada. I'm here in Central Canada. But when they sent it to me, I have no idea. This has actually never happened to me before. I do occasionally order from Amazon US, but I know this was from Amazon Canada. But it's printed in Moni, Illinois. I had never gotten a US print Amazon book ordering from Amazon Canada before. So I thought, well, this is an excellent opportunity to, prepare some pages in here, prep some pages, and we can see. So here's the different, and I marked these pages so I know which was which. Here's the different things we're going to be testing. So we're going to be testing Workable Fixative, Krylon Workable Fixative. We're going to be testing some Liquitex Clear Gesso, which is this stuff here. So gesso, of course, is also not meant for this. It is meant to prime surfaces, but it does add tooth. So it's typically used for, this is an acrylic medium, so acrylic painting. I think you can put gesso on for watercolor painting. So this is like a thick liquid. And so we're gonna, I prepped a page, and this is why this video also took so long to get out to you. The Krylon Workable Fixative spray page was easy. I sprayed it. Literally within 5 minutes, it's dry. It's probably dry faster than that. But all these other pages, I had to paint one page with, whatever it was that I was going to be using, and then wait for it to dry because I couldn't really close the book and go to the next page to put the next thing on until that page was dry. So it took a while. So we've got Liquitex Clear Gesso. Then I also have some Daniel Smith Transparent Watercolor Ground. So this again, it's still pretty liquidy. It's in a jar as opposed to a bottle, but it is still goopy. It's not like a thick paste. So this says creates a paintable surface for watercolor. And you put it on absorbent canvas, paper, plastic, cardboard. You can also put it on glass, plastic, or metal, because of course non-absorbent surfaces, watercolor wouldn't really work. But if you want a watercolor on something like glass, you would put this down first. Allow 24 to 48 hours to cure. So each of these pages took a long time. So we're gonna try a page that's been prepped with that. And all of these things were bought over a number of years. Just, me watching YouTube videos, listening to other people suggest products. Lindsay the Frugal Crafter, I got a lot of ideas from her. Just This one, diluted white acrylic paint. I got this idea, sort of, from Annika, Axix Fumbles, because she had been doing videos where she uses watered down acrylic paint to do like a wash. Like she's basing. So she uses different colors and so she's basing an area and then she goes over top. And I thought, well, what if I dilute white? So this is just an Arteza craft. This is just your typical, I mean, you could get like folk art, deco art, another brand. Apple Barrel. I mean, any of those. This is just craft paint, right? But I diluted it down, probably like half and half with water. And I have, this was my dilution. I didn't measure. So I just put some craft paint in there, put some water in and stirred it up. And then painted over top a page. And my reasoning was acrylic is a type of plastic. So if this is acrylic paint, maybe this could serve as that protective, sort of coating that I need to be able to blend on, paper that doesn't normally work well or play well with these kinds of pens where I'm blending on the page. And so thank you, Annika. You weren't using it for this purpose, but I'm going to try. And I also thought this is by far the cheapest option. So if this works, that would be pretty cool. And it actually lightens the line work too. I mean, you could play with the dilution amount. I mean, I wouldn't put it on, well, it depends. I mean, if you have some of these really cheap brands, they're not really, really opaque. So it's not going to cover up everything, but you might want to dilute it some, and then you could at least see your line work. But yeah, we're going to try that. We are going to try Golden Satin Glazing Liquid. Now, this has been super popular. Maya, the lovely Maya, Colored by Maya, Kay, Coloring with Kay, uses this. There's lots of other colorists. I was trying to look back on YouTube to see who the first person to suggest this was. Future editing Connie here. So I looked back on YouTube, and I think the first person to suggest using satin glazing liquid to prep pages was the very lovely Rebecca from the Art Spirits. So Rebecca has an Etsy store where she sells her beautiful paints, but she also has a YouTube channel. And that was about 8 years ago, I think. She had a video where she was using satin glazing liquid to prep a page. And Coloring Bliss, Jennifer Stay, also had a video about 8 years ago where she used watercolor ground to prep a page. There was also a video that I found from Lisa's Coloring Corner about 6 years ago, maybe, where she did a comparison of a bunch of different products to prep pages. She didn't use the Workable Fixatif spray, though, so that's a little bit different. And also, Color Me Stress Free did a video, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, where she used satin glazing liquid to prep a page, but actually in order to stop alcohol marker from bleeding through to the other side. So when I go and do some testing here later in the video, we will see if there are maybe other things that will also stop alcohol marker from going through. So yeah, that's a little bit of history of the people on YouTube who tried these things out before me. Again, just wanted to give credit where credit is due. This is not at all meant for what we've as colorists have been using it for. This is meant to be added to acrylic paints, typically heavy body acrylic paints. These are what are called soft body acrylic paints, like these little craft acrylic paints. They're pourable. Heavy body acrylic paints are typically what acrylic artists use. They come in tubes and they're really thick. And they, you put some on a palette. When it comes out of the tube, it immediately starts to dry. And acrylic, being acrylic, doesn't re-wet really well. It also doesn't sort of re-wet on your canvas really well, if you've left it too long. So this is meant to be added to acrylic paint to slow the drying time for acrylic paint. So it really is not meant for this at all. But these very creative and enterprising folks that tried this discovered that if you put it on a page, you can again give the page that coating to allow you to watercolor on paper that wouldn't normally like watercolor, etc. So I tried satin glazing liquid full strength, and then I tried satin glazing liquid diluted. I just wanted to see if, again, about half and half with water. I then tried, and this is a recent thing, this is Holbein multi-sizing liquid. And I learned about this on Lindsay the Frugal Crafter's channel. She was using it and talking about sort of renewing the sizing on watercolor paper that had maybe been, sitting around for a while. But I thought, well, again, it's sizing. Sizing is what's on watercolor paper. It basically says it's used to reduce the absorbency of paper. And that's the key, right? If I'm going to color with markers and blend on the page, I don't want the page to absorb that ink right away. Because if it does, I can't move the ink. So I need some kind of coating on the paper. Either, the paper actually comes with coating, or it's so well pressed that it doesn't, it feels really smooth. It's just, the paper needs to have something in it or on it so that the ink stays on top of the paper long enough that I can move it. That's the whole point. So I thought, well, we'll try this too. So this, I did 2 pages here. So we've got full strength. And it does say on the bottle to dilute it. So I diluted it, again, about half and half. Did another page. And the last thing I tried was, I do have this other here. So this is just another kind of cleared gesso. This is Diana Wakely. So this was put out by Ranger. So again, we've got, I had the Liquitex clear gesso. This is cheaper than this. So, but these two things, they're more or less the same. And the last thing I tried was, again, something that I also, got relatively recently. It's this Spectra Fix. And this is a different kind of fixative in that it is, it says odor-free, non-toxic, all-natural, which it probably is. It's based on a protein in milk called casein. And casein was used as a fixative for centuries by artists. So this has casein, some denatured grain alcohol, and water. So I sprayed this page with this fixative. The tricky part when prepping all these pages is that everything other than this, because this has a solvent, right? So when I spray this on, this doesn't distort the page at all, right? So I sprayed it on this first page. There's no distortion at all. There's no wrinkling, there's no crinkling, there's no creasing, nothing. Everything else, though, is water-based. So what I was finding was when I was prepping these pages, I would paint, whatever it was on, but I couldn't really just leave it open like this to dry. Because if I did that, the page would just crinkle up and wrinkle up horribly. Now, if I was prepping pages in a better quality coloring book, that would be less of an issue. But on this really, really thin Amazon print paper, I thought, I can't just leave this open to dry. What am I going to do? I can't close it when it's wet. So I figured out this. And this is something that I sort of got from an art restoration channel that I love watching. It's called Baumgartner Restoration. So basically, he's an art restoration professional in Chicago, I think. And he restores paintings. And one of the things he does when he's restoring paintings, he oftentimes will have to flatten them out because they got wrinkled or crinkled or, whatever. And so if he adds moisture to the painting, as he's letting it dry, he has to put weight on it so it doesn't, as it's drying, re-crinkle. And what he does is, it's still wet, so he puts some kind of he's got some kind of Mylar release film. So I thought, well, I don't have that, but I do have like wax paper. That's got to be pretty releasey. So what I did was I would paint the page with whatever I was doing for all of these water-based things. And then I would put some wax paper, make sure it was all covered like that. And then I thought, well, I need something absorbent to absorb the moisture as it's, coming out of the page that I just treated, because I don't want to just close the book and have all the moisture seep through to, the next page down, etc. So I just took he used like felt or something like that. I just took some stacks of just printer paper and I put one over top the wax paper like that. And then I lifted up the page that I had just prepped and put another stack underneath. And then I would close the book. And then I would usually put another big like textbook or something on top of it, and I would wait and let that dry. And what that did was, I think anyway, it allowed the pages that I prepared with these other, sort of water-based mediums to dry a little flatter than they would have otherwise. So that's just a little something I did. Also, when I am painting on, things like watercolor ground or satin glazing liquid, I've tried a number of different things. I've tried a bristle brush. I've tried like a foam brush, like those cheap foam craft brushes. And no matter what I used for these things that are a little bit thicker, I always got lines. It just, like I would get brush marks or bristle marks. I found this on Amazon. This is a silicone brush. I mean, that's what it looks like. I have no idea what it's used for. But this works amazingly for, things like the satin glazing liquid, the watercolor ground. So I would, squirt a little bit of or put a little bit on the brush or squirt on the page, and then use this. And you kind of have to go, one way and then the other, and you have to, sometimes there'll be a little bit of excess, so you kind of wipe that off and then just keep going. And I just keep going, both ways, so I don't have little ridges of excess that are left to dry. But this, using this, means that I don't have brush marks. So there's another little tip or hint. So yeah, so for all of these thicker things like the satin glazing liquid, the clear gesso, I think even the watered down acrylic paint, I just used this silicone brush. I have no idea. I think if you look up silicone brush, this is a 2-inch silicone brush. If you're having trouble finding it, let me know and I can try and find the original link and I'll post it in the description box. But yeah, this worked really well. The one thing that I did use just this regular brush to apply was the sizing liquid, because this is, it's just watery, right? And so the silicone brush didn't, I guess I could have used that too, but this wasn't going to have brush marks in it because it wasn't thick enough, right, to leave brush marks. So I just used a regular brush to brush this on. All right, sorry, that was a lot of talk about prep, but I wanted to make sure that, you guys understood what I'd been doing. So we're not going to color each of these pages, but I just basically want to do a little test. Sorry, I'm just turning away here. Just want to put something in behind each one. Do a little test on each of these pages to see what kind of blending we can get using, all these various. So I've got a bunch of different kinds of water-based markers here. I even have some alcohol markers. I just want to see, what kind of blending we can get. So why don't we start with some greens? Again, smaller areas are always going to be easier. Blending with markers on large areas, even on really great paper, is hard. And I've talked about this before. I always take the caps off, tilt my page. When you're blending with these, it's always flicking, right? If you guys watch my color along, it's never kind of this scrubbing motion, although you will see me sometimes go at the very end with the lightest color and kind of, you know, scumble, is that the word, over everything. But, and just to show you, I should show you, I guess. So this is an untreated page. I did nothing to this page. Oh, now this isn't working anymore. Oh well. My apologies. Thought I could do some zooming, but apparently I can't. So I always start with my darkest color, then I go to my medium kind of color, then maybe my lightest color. Oh, that's not the right light color. Oops. There it is. Sorry, that's also not good. You also have to work fast, right? If you're going to blend on the page, you can't do what I just did. So, hopefully you can see that. I mean, that's not really blended, right? I can still see all of the individual marks that I made with the pen. It goes through to the other side, which, I mean, in most Amazon print coloring books, they're one-sided, so it's, you know, it's not a big deal. So let's try this same blend. So I've got 2 Pitt pens and a Stettler pen here. These are pretty much interchangeable. The Stettler ink is actually a little bit better with blending on pages, but the Pitt pens are my first love. So what have I got here? Chromium green opaque, earth green, and pastel green in the Stettler. It doesn't really matter here. This isn't really a color along. I do have another video in the works to show some color combos, but this is not it. So this is now the Krylon Workable Fixatif page. I also need, there we go, a scribble page. I always have a page to scribble off my markers. Because if they're blending properly, they should pick up some of the darker ink and move it, right? So then, you know, you've got some darker ink on your lighter color pens. Hang on one sec. I'm going to see if I can get the zoom to work here. Okay, let's try this. There we go. So there you can see the leaf that I just colored on the page with the Krylon Workable Fixatif versus there's a leaf I colored on the page that wasn't treated with anything. Excuse me. Difference? Not a perfect blend. You're never going to get that perfect seamless blend with these that you get with colored pencils. You're always going to get sort of a looser kind of watercolory effect. But I think you would agree that's a much better blend than that. Do you think? I think. Now, greens are easy to blend. Let's try some pink. Again, I'm kind of mixing and matching here. I've got, what, light rosé and middle purple pink. Let's see if we can get a pink blend on some of these petals here. So you can see, flicking. That's pulling the color. That's pretty nice. I'm honestly kind of surprised. Because I don't know that I've ever... Have I? Yeah, maybe I have. Well, I'm not going to worry about it. Again, this is the untreated page. Can you see? You just can't, because the fibers of this paper immediately grab onto that ink and suck it in, which means it's not on the surface of the paper to be moved. So, you know, hopefully you can see the difference between that and that. Wow, I am actually quite... And the Krylon Workable Fixatif doesn't give a any kind of gritty coating either. You know, like it actually feels almost smoother, well, a little bit, than the untreated paper. So what about, let's try some water-based markers that aren't pigment-based. So these are some Faber-Castell Gold Faber Aqua. I've got Lavender Light and Lavender Dark. Brush-tipped markers, of course, are always going to be easier to blend. You know, you could try Crayola Super Tips. It's just going to be a little bit harder because you can't get that sort of little flicking motion. Do you know what I mean? But that's pretty nice. I guess I didn't choose a super... there's not a really big jump between the two in terms of light dark. There you go. I think that's looking pretty good. There's a reason why I always suggest the workable fixative. It just it works. What do we have here? So I've got some Lyra aqua brush. Try some of these peachy colors here. Again, I guess I didn't choose. Why don't we try, what's this? This is Naples Yellow Reddish. No idea if that's going to work. Try another flower down here. Oh, that's really pale. I thought that was a lot darker. Oops. Just to show you. So the Lyra pens have little bullet tips on the other end. Let's see what we can do with that. Just in case you don't have, I'm still trying to do little flicks, just in case you don't have like the, you know, any brush pens. I don't think it's as smooth, but I think that I still got the ink to move. So there you go. Krylon Workable Fixatif. Just out of curiosity. Alcohol markers. These are my Winsor Newton Pro Marker brush markers. I've got a dark blue and a light blue here. Let's do a flower. I would say it's not as effective with alcohol marker. Alcohol marker tends to just kind of go straight into the page unless you've got something really plasticky on the surface, and it's still going to soak through the page. But you'll see with the other, oh, you can't see. Oops. great. Now the zoom is stuck. Hang on. Okay, my goodness, I'm sorry. Technical issues today. So the alcohol marker bled through, but the other markers didn't. I mean, this paper's so thin, you can see the image on the other side. But they didn't go through as much as they did here. So the Krylon Workable Fixatif does, you know, it works. It just works. But I did say we were going to try some other things here. So let's try some Liquitex clear gesso. Now, I actually don't even like touching this. Let's see if you can hear the difference here. Okay, ready? Can you hear the difference? This is really rough. Really, really rough. It almost feels like sandpaper, which I'm not saying that's what gesso is supposed to do. It's supposed to add tooth. But that's kind of why I don't like using it for this purpose, because it's really hard on the nibs of your markers, right? It's not meant for this. It's meant for painting with, you know, it's not meant for using markers. So it's kind of why I don't like using this. But we will give it a try just to see how it works for blending. I don't think I'm going to zoom anymore. There's something very wrong with that little remote control that I have. All right, so let's try some flowers here. Oh, I don't even like the feel. You can see I'm actually flicking the other way, right? On the other page when I was blending, I flicked the darker color on, and then I flicked the lighter color and pulled the darker color. It almost blends too well here. And so to avoid just completely mixing both of the colors, because that's the other thing I love about this. It leaves, you know, the dark where it was supposed to be, most of it, and just gives you that nice blend. This, it's almost, it blends too well, almost. But you certainly can move the inks, right? They're moving. So let's try some water-based markers here. So again, I've got the lavender light, lavender dark, these gold Faber Aqua. Yep. I mean, again, I'm having to be careful not to pull all of the dark forward, but the inks are definitely moving. Can even do. Let's do a really big jump. These are gold Faber Aqua again. Let's do these two. So this is pine green and May green yellowish. So that this is a pretty big jump. And do some big leaves down here. So you'll be able to see, I think, well, maybe not as big a jump as I thought. And you can see I scribble off on the side when I want to get that darker ink off and just be left with, you know, the lighter ink. But I mean, you can certainly move those. You can move those inks. So if all you've got available to you is some, because you can buy Liquitex clear gesso. I think I even, not sure where I bought that, but I think you can buy that at like Walmart. Like it's pretty common. We could try some alcohol marker. I feel like the brush nibs are screaming, no! You know, it works some. with the alcohol marker. Sorry, I kind of chose poor colors, I guess, but not, again, not as well as the water-based markers. So I know since my zoom is not behaving, so let's take a closer look here. So you can see with the purple and the pink there, the water-based and the pigment-based, you know, we could definitely move the ink. The alcohol ink, not so much. The leaf, again, was water-based markers, the dye-based, not the pigment-based. But yeah, for sure, you could move the inks. Here's the interesting thing with gesso. That was alcohol marker. Right there. That was the blue, I don't know if you trust me, but that was the blue flower, right? And that was alcohol marker. So gesso will actually stop alcohol marker from going through the page. And I'm pretty sure this was Color Me Stress Free. I'm pretty sure I learned, although I don't know if she was using gesso, I can't remember. Or if she was using satin glazing liquid, I don't remember. But it was a trick that she had discovered. So if you have double-sided coloring books and you're desperate to use alcohol marker, if you put a layer of clear gesso on the page, it will stop the alcohol marker from going through. Now, you have to be careful because let's say I was spreading this on with a brush and I accidentally missed a little spot. Wherever that little spot I missed is, the alcohol marker is going straight through. So you have to be really careful and make sure you've got full coverage. But, I mean, yeah, here the Krylon Workable Fixatif didn't stop it, but gesso will. So that's pretty interesting. But, I mean, definitely, the inks are definitely moving with the gesso. It's very rough. It does give you a funny kind of speckly little texture, just again, because it's so rough, right? It probably has little silica particles in it, if I had to guess. So, yeah, it's just going to give you that rougher texture. So now we've got the Daniel Smith Transparent Watercolor Ground. Slightly different from gesso. It's a little rough. It's rougher than the Krylon Workable Fixatif page, but not as rough as the gesso. So let's see what we got going here. Try our pinks again. Oh, there's a little... That's another thing. If you're fixing pages with any of the paint-on kind of stuff, make sure you don't have little fuzz particles stuck underneath it, because, no, there's a little fuzz particle there and it's stuck. Oh, well. This doesn't feel quite so much like the nibs are screaming at me. No, stop. So that's good. Yeah, absolutely. You can blend. Again, almost too well. I have to be careful not to pull all of the darker ink forward. In fact, that one I think I pulled a little bit too much. So if that's the case, you know, you're working and you're worried, then instead of taking the lighter color, going into the dark and pulling that dark ink forward, go back the other way. So flick kind of backwards and flick the lighter color back and just a bit over the darker color. And that will leave the darker color, you know, where it's supposed to be, but give you a little blended line where they meet, if that makes sense. This is giving a very strange texture. It's giving an even stranger texture than the gesso did. That's interesting. I don't know if you can see that. It'd help if my zoom was working, wouldn't it? I think you can see that, though. You see the texture it's giving? It's very odd. I'm trying to remember what other kind of markers I had in here. Oh yeah, I had some of these Zig ones. These again are water-based, dye-based inks. These have a rubber nib, foam rubber nib, as opposed to a kind of fiber nib, which is what most other water-based markers have. But I was just curious. Yeah, I mean, you can absolutely pick up ink, move it. These again are just some Gold Faber Aqua. This is the pine green and the May green yellowish that I had before. Yeah, I mean, he's giving a strange texture though. No ghosting. Let's see if it stops alcohol marker. Oh, that I just got in my hand. Again, I think helps with blending some. Not as much as water-based. Oh, it was just wanting to come through. Just trying. But stop most of it. That's interesting. It also looks like it keeps it. Oh yeah, it does. Look what it did over here. No, not so much there. This almost, the alcohol marker looks shiny. So it would be like coloring with alcohol marker on plastic. You know what I mean? So just be aware of that if you go to then close your book. You hear that? It's like sticky. And it's sort of coming off my finger. So that's interesting. So that was the Daniel Smith transparent watercolor ground. Interesting. All right, so this is the diluted white acrylic paint. I'm really curious about this because I have never tried this before. Yeah, I've not something I've ever tried. Not for well, not for anything, I don't think. Let's try our pinks. You notice I keep picking flowers and leaves. They're quick and easy for me to color. Let's pick a balloon then. This wouldn't be the color of a pig, but oh well. It's a little bit larger area too. We can see how it's a pretty, that's a pretty bright pink for a pig. Oh, yeah, this doesn't. Granted, I guess I did wait a little long. Now I feel I have to color the whole thing. Okay, now I am scumbling. Just trying to get the area colored. Yeah, that didn't. The inks did not move, not the way they did on the other. I mean, maybe if I hadn't diluted it that much, maybe. Let's try a smaller area here. No. Nope. Darn, I was really hoping that would work. Okay, that looks really weird now. Oh well. I decided this was going to be my tester book. If I truly want this book, I'll probably try ordering it again and just crossing my fingers that I get a Canadian copy. Just because the Canadian paper is a little bit better. Let's try a leaf here. Greens are typically a bit easier to blend. Actually, those two greens are kind of close. Let's try these two. Not really. I mean, maybe it helps a tiny bit versus a completely untreated page. But I mean, you can see the pig. That really didn't work at all. Kind of strange colors for a pig. And you can see there, not really. Should we try some water-based here? I can't imagine this is going to work any better. Maybe I just needed, maybe there's too much water. Like I diluted the acrylic paint too much. Maybe I needed to leave it. Yeah. It's not really, the inks aren't moving. But yeah, I mean, maybe if I hadn't diluted the acrylic paint as much. I mean, I could do the alcohol marker, but it's not gonna, it's just gonna go straight through. I can, because I'm even getting ghosting with the water-based markers going through. So, I really hope that would work. So now we've got satin glazing liquid. So this is full strength satin glazing liquid. So we'll try our pinks again. Make a little flower down here. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I knew this would work. Because I've done it before. I would say of my, now mind you, we haven't gone through them all yet. The Krylon Workable Fixatif is still my favorite. Just ease of use, quick drying. This golden satin glazing liquid is probably my second favorite. So you can see, you see there? It's not like we have a sharp delineation or line between the dark and the light. Right? You can see, sorry, my camera's fighting for lighting today too. I could move the ink. I could pull it out. So let's try our two greens here. Oh yeah. Yep. We can definitely say we can move inks there. And again, you know, I know I've said this at the beginning of the video, but I'll say it again. You're not going to get that perfectly seamless, smooth blend that you do with colored pencils. You just won't. But you can get them to blend on the page. This does leave a little bit of a strange texture. Kind of similar to the texture the watercolor ground left. Weirdly, that really scratchy gesso left less of a texture, and then you get barely any texture left with the workable fixative. I don't think satin glazing liquid stops alcohol marker. I could be wrong, but I don't think it does. I think the gesso and that watercolor ground were the only ones that did. But, what I got here? Do his little pants. I don't like coloring clothing, so I probably put the highlights and shadows in all the wrong places, but oh well. You kind of go back over it. It actually might be pulling the, and maybe with the other ones too. Yeah, it actually, I would say this is working better for moving the alcohol inks than, or allowing me to move the alcohol inks than any of the others that I've tried, interestingly. But it does give a weird plasticky texture to where I've put down the alcohol ink. And so, which makes sense. I mean, this is an acrylic product. It's plastic, right? The satin glazing liquid. Can you see the alcohol? His pants are shiny. Now, I'm assuming that's eventually going to dry. Alcohol ink wouldn't normally give shine like that. But I think it did allow me to pull out and blend a little bit better. I mean, not as well as, what's the really expensive Express It blending card, or Yupo, is that the other one? That are meant for alcohol inks. Does feel kind of sticky. Hopefully that would dry though. Does it stop it going through? Ooh, it did. It just was wanting to. Interesting. And I mean, you saw me. I was putting a lot of alcohol ink down there. So golden satin glazing liquid, full strength, could also help you to not have alcohol ink go through. Interesting. All right. Well, let's take a look at golden satin glazing liquid diluted. Again, I wasn't really, chemist. I probably should have measured, but I didn't. I'm thinking like half and half-ish. Golden satin glazing liquid mixed with water in that little plastic tub, and then I painted it on. So let's see the kind of difference that makes in terms of blending. That was kind of little, I guess. Let's try a shirt here. If you're doing a larger area, you kind of have to almost think and work in sections. Because again, even with treatment like this on the page, you can't let it dry. Like you can't put down the dark and then let that dry. Then it's not going to move, right? So if you've got a larger area, see what I did there? I'm kind of doing it where I know I have to put the dark down little bits at a time. Because if I put the dark down in all the areas that I wanted to put dark down in all at once, it would dry, I think, before I got to it with the lighter color to blend it out. I think it still works, half and half. It gives it a less the satin glazing liquid does give it a little bit of a gritty feel. Certainly not as much as the gesso treated page, but a little. And I think diluting it helps take away a little bit of that. Yeah, it does help to take away a little bit of that gritty feel, but I still think we got an okay blend there. And I mean, pinks and purples can be tougher to blend. Again, I think I learned that from Lindsay the Frugal Crafter. Whereas greens will typically want to blend. A little bit more almost wanting to ghost there, and I'm guessing these will probably ghost through or bleed straight through with the diluted, because I just don't think it gives it enough of a coating. Yeah, I feel like I'm not able to move that alcohol ink much either. Still does give it a bit of a strange texture. And we were talking about texture earlier. You can see it's kind of almost speckly. And then we've got, oh, yeah, I mean, so there's where I did the pants on the sort of diluted, and there's where I did the pants on the undiluted. So you can see, starting to come through. Not really, a few tiny dots here and there. So if you're worried about alcohol marker and you want to stop it from going through a page, you're going to have to use it full strength, I would think. We didn't try any of these others, but guessing there's some Lyra greens. Gosh, I like these. Yeah, I mean, I think you're able to move ink. Maybe not quite as well as on the full strength page, you know. Again, I mean, you're putting down less plastic, really, is what you're doing, right? So, I mean, although I have to say, sometimes the golden satin glazing liquid almost makes me able to move the ink too much, right? So, if that's the case, maybe diluting it a little bit, and you can play with the dilution ratios. It doesn't have to be half and half, right? You could do whatever you want, but that might give me a surface. Okay, and I'm probably always going to go with my workable, sprayable Krylon Workable Fixatif, but if I didn't have any, you know, if I could play with the dilution ratio of satin glazing liquid to water, I might be able to come up with something that Goldilocks allows me to blend just right. Not too much, not too little. All right, so this is the one I think people have been quite curious about, because I don't know that I've ever tried using this, because it's relatively new to me. This one did really crinkle the page, because you're basically almost painting water on Amazon paper, which Amazon paper does not like water. And so, yeah, I mean, I did the same trick, you know, with this that I did with the others. I put the wax paper on, put the stacks of paper, a little paper sandwich, and then, you know, put it under weights so it would dry kind of flat. I don't know, you'll also notice, I don't know if you can see right there, it almost started to pick up the ink and smear it. It started to do that with something else too. Satin glazing liquid was okay. The Krylon Workable Fixatif. The gesso might have started to, the clear gesso might have started to smear the ink a bit. The watercolor ground maybe a little bit. Oh, the diluted white acrylic paint. I don't know if you can see on her mouth there. It started to... So you have to kind of be careful when you're painting some of this stuff on, because it might start to grab some of the ink and just smear it. So this is the multi-sizing liquid. Let's see what it does. So this is full strength. Interesting. I don't think it's really working. I mean, I realize I'm using all of these things. What's the phrase? Off label. I'm not using them for what they were meant for. So I'm not blaming any of these products for either working or not working. It doesn't work as well as the Krylon Workable Fixatif. I don't know if you can see that. You see that? So you can still see the brush marks or the stroke marks of the darker pink. Now, if that's a look you're going for, awesome. But, you know, if we look at that in comparison to, here's the Krylon Workable Fixatif, right? Oh, sorry. See on the pink there? You can't see the brush marks, like the nib marks of the darker pink. Not really. Well, maybe a tiny bit, but certainly less than I can here. That's interesting. I kind of thought this would work. Okay, so let's try. Oh, I've got markers everywhere here now. So these are some water-based markers. Lyra. Let's try a bigger leaf. So I'm just kind of doing the same thing I was doing on other pages. You know, a little bit of dark at the bottom, and then kind of up the middle where the ridge is. That worked a little better, I think. But again, greens want to blend. Pinks and purples, I think, fight it. So let's try. Now this was also water-based versus, or dye-based versus pigment-based. So let's try dye-based pink or purple. So these are the Gold Faber-Castell Gold Faber Aqua. You know, I almost think that this, which maybe makes sense, this Holbein multi-sizing liquid is meant for treating watercolor paper or other, yeah. I almost think, and that's weird, this doesn't normally happen, it seems to almost work better with the, I mean, I hesitate to call these watercolor markers. They're not really, but they are dye-based, water-based brush tip markers as opposed to pigment-based, water-based brush tip markers. And they almost, this sizing liquid almost seems to work a little better with the dye-based as opposed to the pigment-based. So this is dye-based again. These are just Lyra again. Let's try a leaf. I don't know why you'd have a peach-colored leaf, but yeah, that's interesting. I realize I'm doing a very, this video is long, I know, it's me. You guys know me. Long videos. I almost feel like it's working better. Let's try some greens and pigment pens. So this was dye, because this was the Goldfaber Aqua, and this is pigment. So we've got a pit pen, and then I'm going to blend it out with a Stettler pen. No, I still think it I mean, it's kind of a judgment call, I guess, but normally the pigment pens blend better on the page than dye-based. But with this Holbein multi-sizing liquid, I don't know if you can see, there was the water-based, or dye-based, because that was the Goldfaber pens, and then there's the Pitt pen and the Stettler pen. Weird. So again, there, I can still see the stroke marks of the darker pink on the pigment pens, but not really so much on the dye-based. Interesting. I did not expect that. Okay, so this is Holbein multi-sizing liquid diluted. Again, it's like half and half. It does say in the bottle to dilute it. I imagine this is going to give the same kind of results, I would think. Maybe even... This almost feels like there's nothing on the page. Like, it almost feels untreated. Yeah, that's not... So these are the pigment inks. They're not moving at all. And that's greens, right? I mean, just for comparison, let's try some dye-based, like the Lyra. So, I mean, these are like Tombows, right? They're just, this is a different brand. It's Lyra. It's a German brand. I actually prefer these more than Tombows, but let's try a leaf over here. These have less colors than Tombows, but... That's funny. Again, I think the water-based, dye-based, I'm going to get it right someday, still blend better. Well, they definitely blend better, I think, on here than the pigment ones. How very odd. How very, very odd. And I mean, that was greens. Greens should have, been easy, but this definitely did not blend. The Pitt pen and the Stettler pen. Again, those are kind of close colors, but yeah, it's almost like it fights the pigment pens. That's very interesting. Since I kind of sort of bought this thinking maybe I could use it to treat pages to then color with pigment markers, but I'm gonna go with no. Oh, I didn't even try. I mean, I could. No, I said I wasn't going to. I didn't try alcohol markers on the Holbein multi-sizing because, I mean, that was these two water-based pens, and it's coming through. So there's no way that it's going to stop this. And there's no way a diluted version of the Holbein multi-sizing liquid is going to stop alcohol markers either. All right, so we've got one left. This is the Spectrafix. So this is the spray fixative that is made from casein protein. So it's a protein that's in milk. And the one thing, and I think I did mention this, maybe when I talked about this in the haul video where I talked about getting this pump. So this is just a regular, standard kind of, manual pump sprayer. It does tend to spit, or it did for me anyway. So it was tougher to get, a really fine, even mist over the page because it tended to want to sploot. And so what I did was I got one of these from Amazon. This is just a cheap, I think they sell them for, I don't know, use in the kitchen or something. But it was called a continuous spray bottle or something like that. So I just poured some of this in here. Now, I haven't tried this on a page yet because this is the only page that I've fixed with this stuff, and I didn't have this when I sprayed this page. So this page was sprayed with this. I don't think those little sploots would make a difference, but this definitely, I did take these two outside. I just sort of sprayed them quickly into the air. And this does give a finer mist. And it's not forever continuous, but it's definitely, when you push this down, I'm not going to do it now. When you push this down, you get a longer mist than this. Apparently, this does get sold in a bottle like this, or similar to this, I think, but I couldn't find it in Canada. The only version I could find in a Canadian store was this one. So if you're in Canada, or if you're in a place where this is all you can find, and you're a little worried about that kind of pump, these are really cheap on Amazon. I think I got a 2-pack for like $10 or something like that. And then you just unscrew the top. Unscrew this top, pour some of this in there. I was surprised. It does say you have to shake it, but it doesn't separate a whole lot. There's a little, I don't know if you can see that. There's like a little bit of white on the bottom. I was sure that would separate completely, but there, it's gone. So yeah, I was quite impressed by that. So yeah, one of those might be a better idea. All right, so let's see what this does. We'll try our pigment pens first. This is full strength Spectrafix. I just sprayed it, like I say, out of that bottle. Nope. Nope. Doesn't want to function that way. Not with the pigment pens anyway. Can you see that? So it doesn't want to, I think that's pretty obvious. Like, I couldn't get that darker pen to move at all. Greens. So again, I'm just doing pigment right now, pigment pens. We'll try the water-based here in a minute. Nope. This is pretty much almost like I've got nothing on there. That's interesting. I thought it would have helped. I feel like if I keep going over this, it's actually going to start pilling up the page, which that's another thing, when you put some of these coatings on, like the Krylon Workable Fixatif, to some extent, but definitely like the gesso or the, those kinds of things. It's going to reduce pilling a lot, because you're not coloring on the paper, you're coloring on top of that plasticky coating you've put on there, right? I thought this would do better. I really did. So let's try some water-based here. So we've got the Lyra again. Okay, boy, it's saying what? Dye-based. I know this. I do know it. Let's try this leaf here. And I'm trying to use the same technique with all the different kinds of markers so that, hopefully I'm not biasing one over the other just because of my change in technique. Yeah, that's... these two colors are closer together, I guess, but it's not moving. It's not moving that ink at all. Interesting. Nope, nope. Oh yeah, just right through. I mean, that's basically our way of telling quickly, you know, is whatever we put on here providing the coating that we need to allow us to blend those inks on the page. Because if this ink is soaking right through, it's not, obviously, right? The paper fibers are grabbing the ink right away, pulling it in, and so it's not giving us the time to blend on the page, right? Whereas, whole line was weird. You know, this was the golden satin glazing liquid. I mean, that was alcohol marker. The water-based and the dye-based, it's that coating on the page is allowing the ink to sit on the page long enough that we can work it. All right. So what did we discover after an hour and 20 minutes of me rambling? Well, I still, and I know a lot of you you're concerned, and I understand that, but I really do think this is your best bet for this purpose. You can get other fixatives. Now, maybe you can try, I think there's like a Mod Podge spray that you can get. The thing is, and there's other fixatives like art quality fixatives that you can get as well, but those are all final fixatives. And the reason I wanted a workable fixative is because a final fixative, it's final. It's not meant to be worked on top of. So if you spray a page with something that's a final fixative, you may go to color on the page and find that nothing is sticking to it, right? So, you know, you might be able to find like Mod Podge. They won't be called fixatives. They'll probably just be called, I don't know, spray adhesives maybe? I'm not even really sure. But if you want to try that, definitely get the matte one. Don't get the glossy one, because the glossy one, then it'll just be like you're trying to color on top of like shiny plastic, and the markers won't stick. It's not going to work. So that's why I'm using the workable fixative, because I don't want a final fixative. I want to be able to work on top of it. And you can, allows easy rework. So you can go back on top with your markers, with your pencils, with your, you know, whatever you want. And then I think you can, crystal clear protective spray coating protects against dusting and smudging, no wrinkles, because it's solvent based. Ideal for charcoal, pastel, pencil drawings, layouts. You can recoat it anytime. If you put enough reapplications on, I mean, it is a fixative as well. So let's say I wanted to do a chalk pastel background, which, I mean, are beautiful, but are very messy, right? You could put the chalk pastel background on an untreated page, spray it with this. That will help to fix the chalk pastel in place, although it will actually change the color of the chalk pastel. Just point there. And then you can continue coloring the rest of the image. So this to me is so versatile. I know it can be expensive, depending on where you are, but there's nothing else like it for my purposes, for what I want to do. This was really terrible, cheap Amazon paper. And we got maybe a tiny bit of ghosting through. The alcohol marker obviously went through. I don't know that it helped the alcohol marker blend all that much, but it certainly, I think, allowed for some pretty good blending of the pigment pens. Did we even try? I don't think we tried. Let's try some water-based, greens. We did some water-based here, I guess. Yeah, you can just grab that water-based ink blend it out. Can you see that? Just did that little leaf there. You know, I can't see the flick marks of the darker one. If you feel that maybe you pulled out too much of the dark one and you want a little bit more dark at the bottom, just go back in the dark one, the bottom. Just be really careful now, just to blend out those flick marks. You know, don't grab too much of it. I just think this is your best bet. So we tested a lot of things here. This isn't your best bet if you don't want alcohol marker to go through, though. I would say that's the one drawback to using this. All the water-based, you know, it stops the ghosting, it stops, you know, all that kind of thing, but it's not going to stop alcohol marker. If you want to stop alcohol marker, you're going to have to use some kind of clear gesso, right? That stopped it. The transparent, although that transparent watercolor ground, that alcohol marker is still sticky. That maybe not be the best. I mean, it didn't go through, but it's still sticky. It's still sticky on the... No, I don't think it's really sticky on the gesso. Still feels a bit sticky there. The white acrylic paint didn't really work. The golden satin glazing liquid, I think allowed the alcohol, although it's really, it's not smooth. It's not a smooth blend. If you can see there. Also still looks kind of shiny. But it didn't allow the alcohol marker to go through. Just a few dots here and there. Maybe I didn't put the satin glazing liquid on, you know, smoothly enough. But I mean, it does allow for blending. It gives it an odd texture, kind of a speckly texture. Diluted. Does still work, I think, for the water-based markers, but it's going to start to allow alcohol marker to go through. So, what's my conclusion? Here's my number 1. Here's my number 2. For everything other than alcohol marker going through, if you don't want the alcohol marker to go through, put this on full strength and you should be able to work. Test. I would say test first, and like I say, if you paint this on and you miss a spot, the alcohol marker is going to go through that spot. But if you do want to stop alcohol marker going through your page, if you get a good coating of that on there, like I say, if you don't like the brush marks with this, try and find yourself one of these. It's like a silicone, really easy to clean too. Yeah, silicone brush. But this doesn't even, there's no brushing, there's no cleanup, there's no anything. Just spray this on. Spray it outside. If you're really concerned, you can get yourself a mask. In terms of safety, I mean, there's kind of 2 things you need to sort of be worried about. Number 1 is the solvent, and that's the part that makes it explosive and flammable. That's also the part that is going to make you feel weird and woozy if you're spraying it in an enclosed area, right? The other part is you basically have, I mean, this is kind of like glue, sort of, not exactly, but in a spray can. So if you're going to be spraying a lot of pages, you don't want to be breathing in the solvent, so outside is you know, a good idea. But you kind of also want to help keep some of that aerosolized glue out of your lungs. I don't think it would be a super, you're not going to glue your lungs shut. I can't see that happening. You'd have to literally be inhaling it, like spraying it, which I realize people sometimes do with solvents, and that's not good. But just use, I don't think. But if you're really concerned about that, get yourself like a little respirator or even an N95 mask. I know I'm saying N95, not N95. That should have small enough pores in the material to keep the glue particles from being breathed in. It's not going to stop the solvent. The solvent's just going to go right through that. But if you're just doing one or 2 pages every now and again, like I say, try and do it outside. If you can't get outside, maybe go in your bathroom, turn on the overhead ventilation fan, just do, 1 or 2 pages, and then walk out, leave till the air is, kind of been changed over. I think you'd be okay. You would. So there you go. An hour and a half. Hopefully that wasn't too... I realize I probably could have just given you the final results in about 2 minutes, but I don't know, you guys seem to like the longer videos, so that's what we did. Yeah, if anyone has any questions about any of this stuff, feel free to ask me down in the comments below. I'll answer as best as I can. There are other products out there, I'm sure, but these were just the ones that I happen to have. And again, I know I'm using all of these off-label. Well, this one less so. I mean, it is supposed to be a workable fixative. But that's okay. I'm okay with that. I know that I'm doing it. And yeah, this is again for kind of a very specific purpose. I don't know how well this would work if I say wanted to watercolor on a page, right? That's not what we're testing here. If you want to watercolor on a page, I know lots of folks use this. This actually might be a better choice. I don't know that this is going to give enough of that, plasticky coating to the page. It might. I just didn't have any watercolors handy. Though I was just going to end this video, but sorry, just trying to find. Realize this isn't really watercolor. These are Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens. Not exactly watercolor, but I don't have any watercolor handy. Just see what these do. Yeah, works for these. So I'm able to grab and blend colors. Let me try something really dark. See what we can get here. Yeah, absolutely, almost too well. Gonna brush it off, but I mean that's a pretty big jump. And there's the blend I was able to get. So maybe for just regular raw watercoloring, the spray would be okay too. Give it a try, right? Try it on a practice page before you try it on your main page. But oh, that one almost wanted to ghost through. That's interesting. All right, I will leave you now. You don't have to listen to any more of my rambling. I hope everyone is safe, I hope everyone is well, and I hope everyone is enjoying their coloring. Till next time, folks, take care. Bye-bye.